Welcome to noise11.com. Liam Finn talking about Crowded House, the Red Hot Summer Tour, a couple of extra dates that have been added in there. Solo project, a film project. We might even go back 20 years to when we first talked to you about Betchadupa. How much time we got, Liam? You got a whole day to spend with us?
We've got 20 minutes, I think. Yeah.
Let's do the abridged version of the Liam story. And, you know, I mean, do you consider yourself an Australian? Because you were born in Melbourne.
Look, I don't really consider it that much, but I'm always kind of up for a little bit of Australia-New Zealand rivalry. So, yeah, let's say I'm Australian.
Well, born in Australia, I take it you've probably got a dual passport.
That's what I mean. I feel a connection to Melbourne and I feel a connection to Australia, but I also feel a deep connection to New Zealand as well. So, just the South Pacific.
Yeah, I'm always amused by the people who, when we call Crowded House an Australian band, it's like, oh, no, they're a New Zealand band. But the band actually formed here with 3/4 Australians at the time, and Neil was actually living here in St Kilda.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think that it's pretty fair to say it's an Australian band, but at the same time, we've got three of the five members. 4 of the 5 members now hold Irish passports, so we could just say we're an Irish band.
Oh, that's all right. Rival you too.
Yeah.
Or Boomtown Rats. You've been officially part of the lineup since 2020, but I mean, we go right back to 2007, I think, when you were first touring with the band. When do you pick it up? When do you consider yourself to be a Crowded House member?
Well, I think that it, obviously was made more of an official thing and more of a big deal, like more of a conceptually a shift in Crowded House's story in 2020. But, I've played it with, like you said, in 2007 as a touring acoustic guitar player. I was kind of relegated to the back with an acoustic guitar because Dad was like, I need someone who can play the same feel as me, but I'm sick of playing acoustic. He wanted to shred. So I was sort of just the auxiliary member up the back there, and I got to sing a lot, and it was great. And that was kind of around the same time I started doing a solo thing as well. So it's kind of always been in cahoots with this, with my little trajectory as well. But it's exciting now that we really feel like a real band, and it doesn't feel that different to being in Betchadupa in my 20s. It's, we've all got a very similar sense of humor. It's very, the band text thread is always full of very stupid juvenile jokes, and it's kind of like a classic band scenario, and really kind of exciting now that we've reached a level on because we've toured so much now that we're kind of walking on stage with this confidence that the show can kind of go any direction. We have a set list, but Dad's always throwing a lot of curveballs at us on stage, but now the band's fully equipped to kind of go off on any tangent that he so desires, and it's kind of made for quite a real free experience. I've never really been in a band where it's encouraged to go off script and kind of go, if you're feeling kind of bold enough, you can rip a really gnarly fuzz solo in the middle of the quietest bit, as long as you do it with complete conviction. It's really fun.
I'm incredibly amazed by the timing of this band. And by the timing, I mean, when I saw you last at Rod Laver Arena, how Neil timed down to 11 o'clock so he didn't break the curfew. He didn't go 1 second over or 1 second less.
Yeah, well, he finds it hard to get off stage, to be honest. Like I'll look back at it where he's just sweating and kind of been done a 2.5-hour show, and his dad's just like, I want to keep going. And it's interesting that it's funny to me now that he actually will stop, because I remember at least 10 years ago or 15 years ago, if someone had told him there was a curfew, he'd get kind of all rebellious and want to push it. But now he realizes it's not just someone else is going to have to deal with that carnage when we push it, and someone's going to be having a stressful conversation with the promoter or the venue who's specifically got a time and a fee that you're going to have to pay if you go over and stuff like that. So I think he's kind of he's growing very wise with his years.
There's been 3 generations of Barneses now in the music biz. How are your 2 sons? Are they likely to follow your footsteps and continue with this industry?
I have no idea. I mean, they're both quite naturally musical, but I'm not much like I wasn't really when I was growing up. I'm not pushing them in any direction. I've taught them little melodies, the same kind of things I learned on piano when I was a kid, like the Ghostbusters theme and um, the right hand to Fair Elise. And they kind of incessantly play these things that they've learned now on the piano over and over and over, and it's driving us insane. So I'm kind of thinking maybe you shouldn't be. No, I mean they actually, Buddy, my son, my oldest son, has got a really raspy voice that he's had since he was a baby, and I got him to sing it, well, mainly scream on my record because I was like, this is a really unique tone that he can get, and he sure can scream. So I brought him in, and I've got quite a few kind of full-on punk songs on my record, and I was like, can you just scream? And got these created a really good tone on top of my voice. So he's already, whether he knows it or not, he's been put to work.
Let's talk a bit about that record, Hyperverse, which is a 2025 release.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of a crossover between Crowded House and Hyperverse because you've got the common song, The Howl, on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was doing this project in between the last two Crowded House records, and I started doing a thing where I was streaming myself while just in my room like this, where I've got all my stuff set up and improvising things, which is kind of like what I do a lot of live at my own shows. And I wrote all these songs, and I kind of was at a sort of a point of it where I was just sorting out the bits that I wanted to turn into fully fledged, fully imagined songs. And I gave Dad a bunch of the songs that were kind of floating around, just mainly just to get a bit of feedback and to, you always know when you give it to someone, you know which bits you need to change because you feel tense about those parts or something. But he really gravitated towards the Howl, and had it on a little playlist that he'd made when he was relaxing on his summer vacation holiday, and it kept on pricking his ears up, and he would have to go and see what it was because he knew it, but he didn't know what it was, and it was always the Howl. And so when we got back in the studio for the second session for Gravity Stairs, he said, oh, I really want to try this song, and I think we could do it quite differently and cut it down to being quite a short, succinct 3-minute song. My version is like 5 minutes or something at this point, with lots of guitar solos and drum fireworks and stuff, and kind of finished the song off as Crowded House. And mine was still in a kind of a nebulous state, and that was kind of on the finished Crowded House record. And then I got to go back into mine with what I learned on those sessions and finish my one. And both, I remember when we were doing it for the Crowded House, Dad was like, well, it's not going to make the record unless it's better than your version. Like, it's got to be better than your original version. I was like, all right. So I was into the challenge of that, and we kind of did. But then I got back into the studio for my one. And I was like, well, now I'll get to make mine better. So then I worked on, and it's very different. So they're not like we're really competing, but it's a healthy little competitiveness, I think. And I got to lean into the more atmospheric and experimental side of my one, all the kind of, letting things last a bit longer and being less worried about trying to make a pop song out of it.
I think when Neil cuts a song down from 5 minutes to 3 minutes, we could give that a term. I got you.
Yeah, okay. He got me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I must admit, I personally prefer your version to the Crowded House version. I think it's a much rawer version.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's always nice to hear. I don't feel, like I said, it's not a competitive thing. It's just kind of nice to have people to push up against and things to try out, and a little bit of bits of incentive to try and work a bit harder on something. Because when you're on your own doing solo things, I think you're either never finished or you just want to put it to bed so you can move on, because it's sometimes making all decisions is pretty punishing.
That song is an important part of the set list, or has been for the last couple of years. I think it's been played over 70 times live.
Yeah, no, it's really fun. It always carries a lot of atmosphere on stage and has a different, after all these shows, it becomes palpable how crowds react to certain songs. And that one has a really nice place that it fits in, a real moody sort of thing. And it really, it has a huge crescendo of an end. And yeah, it's really fun. I mean, I feel, it feels amazing to get to play these songs in front of big crowds and looking across the stage and seeing my dad and my brother. And, I feel very lucky having that.
Tell me about Suzanne Barch on top, the soundtrack you've done. Is this the first time you've actually worked on a soundtrack?
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially the first time I've done like I had to do all the music for the entire film because they didn't have a huge budget, and they said, "Look, we'll give you all our music budget if you," because they had a few things that would have been quite expensive syncs, but they weren't integral to the storytelling, just the era in which they were representing. So I got this brief, and I had to do 20, so it's like 20 cues of music in something like 19 days or something like that. It was quite a short period that I had to get it done, but it was awesome. I had to replace a Delight. I'm a big Delight fan. I love Grooves in the Heart. I had to replace not that song, but a different one in a part. And so I got to sort of try out all these things that would not necessarily be my natural like go-to with, 90s drum machines and making house music and, stuff like that. It was a really great experience and nice to be doing something that had a brief and you're doing it, someone else is the boss. So you're really putting your skills and your craft to use rather than you're, trying to pull something emotional out of yourself that is quite vulnerable.
And I would imagine you'd have to be very, very disciplined as well, because, were you working towards the vision? Had they finished all of the scenes when they gave you the project to put the music together?
Yeah, it was a 95% kind of finished cut at that point. That's why there was quite a quick turnaround with the deadline. And they'd had a lot of working music in there the whole time, which I think is always a little bit worrisome. I've heard from composers' point of view, because often directors are quite attached to things and they won't be satisfied until it's really similar or, but the directors that I was working with were good old friends that had made music videos with me, and we made a few art projects together. We had a really good way of communicating, and they had a lot of respect towards what I was kind of they would try and see if they could come around to it before they would really push back on me to change stuff, especially if I'd spent quite a bit of time on it. But I was very willing to try and realize their vision as well. I think what's hard is that communication is the hardest part of it, is them expressing what's wrong about it when they're not a musician. That's understanding someone saying that it needs to feel more golden at this point or something, is I quite like it. It's like you become an interpreter.
You've been very active with the Crowded House songwriting, not only the Howl on the new album, I Can't Keep Up With You, which has been played a couple of dozen times. On Dreamers Are Waiting, Goodnight Everyone was your song. Also, you co-wrote Bad Times Good, Playing with Fire and Start of Something. They've all been songs that have been performed live by Crowded House.
Yeah, well, we're pretty adamant generally with the new records, making sure they're all stage ready, and they're always, new stuff's always really different and fun to play. Like a lot of those older ones are so in the DNA now, and it's not like they become easy. They just sit in a different part of your muscle memory, whereas the new ones become a really good brain plasticity thing. But yeah, no, it's been, it's really it's nice to be part of something that feels like it's still evolving and yet has a real respect and reverence for its legacy as well. And it's quite a unique band to be in for that reason. And now, especially being multi-generational and of having different eras of the band and stuff like that, it's a pretty interesting little story.
The Betchaduper EP, the very first EP, is 25 years old this year. You're officially classic rock in your own right.
Yeah, God, yeah. Well, look, I've got a lot of grey going now. I'm leaning into it. It's good because I'm always going to look younger in comparison to the oldies in Crowded House. So I'm sort of embracing my grey. Yeah, I know Betchaduper was a long time ago, and it's I've recently had to start re-uploading a lot of those things through this experience of doing Hyperverse, my solo record. I've been doing everything self-releasing and going a real circumventing the traditional industry. And I've learned so much, but it's also meant that I've kind of figured out where there's a lot of Betchaduper stuff that's disappeared from the face of the earth, basically. It was a funny era to be a band because it was just pre-YouTube and pre-streaming platforms. And it's basically even pre-MySpace. It was we kind of moved to England around the end of Betchadupa's, before we broke up. It was probably around the first year or two of MySpace when we moved to England, and that was where bands had started getting discovered. So we kind of missed the entire digital time capsule, and a lot of the stuff just disappeared. Most of the music videos, I'm trying to locate where the hard copy is on digital videotape somewhere so I can get it on, YouTube and stuff like that. But it's been quite nice going back and finding some of those old songs and remembering those times, because we had a great time living in Australia. It was really, it was quite a special formative experience.
I'd love to see a reunion. Have you ever thought of doing a reformation of Betchaduper and just getting out and celebrating those songs again?
Yeah, it's been talked about. I mean, every time I ever re-upload something or go through my social networks and to say, oh, look, the first Betchaduper record is back up, there's always such a sort of outpouring of love and appreciation for Betchaduper. It always makes me go, oh, well, actually, maybe there's people out there that want to see it. And we would all, I think the last time we all played was at my wedding, which now is already 10 years ago. But that was quite a, unplanned reunion, and we had no practice. It was just, after quite a few wines at the reception, people pushed us all in the direction of the stage, and it was amazing how we all just snapped back into it, and it felt just as tight and heavy and loose and wild as it ever did. Somehow we remembered all the parts, or at least my hazy memory of it is that we were nailing it. But yeah, it felt so good playing with that band, and I do miss it. That was such a kind of, that was a band that started when we were 13, 14, so it had a lot of memories and first experiences attached to it. So I'm hopeful that it'll happen. If it happens, it'll probably be in Australia.
I've got a great idea for a Betchadupa reunion. Betchadupa headline act, and these guys
are
the support act.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to this band? I saw them once at the Prince of Wales Hotel in St Kilda in Melbourne when this first came out, and never ever saw them or heard from them again.
Well, Dad is always jumping between projects, as you know. That was a empty nester reaction, I think. That was when Mum and Dad and my brother, who's 6 years younger than me, had gone to high school over in the UK, or maybe it was when he just finished high school and they moved back to New Zealand, and they were trying to figure out what to do with their evenings after a couple of wines, and they were in their pajamas and they started just jamming and recording to Dad's old tape machine 16 track, and immediately getting really kind of groovy jams out of it. And I think, they were really big fans of ESG, and it was quite apparent there was a sort of bit of Tom Tom Club kind of thing. And it was, I think Dad was excited because he was playing drums, and it was because of Mum's feel on bass. It was probably the grooviest and the most danceable that Dad's and songs had ever sounded. So they really leaned into it for a while there, and that record is awesome. I love it.
It is Pajama Club, which is Neil and Sharon Finn, as you mentioned. We have the Red Hot Summer shows coming up, as well as Sounds by the River in Mannum, South Australia, and Legends on the Lawn in Mackay, Queensland. A great lineup of bands in there, including Angus and Julia Stone. You've got the Church on some dates. I think Cruel Sea are popping up on another date in there. Fantastic lineup. It's not often we get to see Crowded House in this environment.
Yeah, no, it is quite a unique thing for us to get to do, especially because I think obviously being an Australian band, but with no one in the band living in Australia, it's not sort of the obvious thing to do. But when it came up, it's a lot of shows. I personally love playing shows. We get to play places that I've never been, to what I hear are really grateful and appreciative crowds, and to the fact that we were able to put together a bill like this that feels soulful and exciting and musically inspiring. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to sort of getting to know everybody, and it's going to be nice hearing Under the Milky Way tonight, while we're back. I can already picture the evenings that we're going to enjoy together.
Do you mix up the set list for something like this because it is a different show? Do you do a different set list?
Well, we do a different set list every night anyway. So no doubt that there will be a new angle taken on the set list to begin with, and then it'll probably evolve constantly throughout the tour. So yeah, I mean, we will have just started, or hopefully be most of the way through making a new record that we're doing this year. So I imagine there'll be like the odd new thing that we'll be kind of testing out on stage, and obviously as well, a lot of these places would have had the chance to see Crowded House, so we'll be playing all the classics as well, and making sure we deliver a very satisfying, satisfying night out for the good people of the Outback.
Yeah, and good news that there's another album, I guess, 2026 for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Liam, great to talk to you here at noise11.com. We will catch up again and just talk about the solo Liam Finn work that you've done over the years, because that's something that I do want to talk to you more about.
Yeah, well, anytime. And yeah, I've sort of, like I said, I've been kind of circumventing the traditional industry, but it means that I'm like, oh, there's a lot of people that do not have any idea that I'm still even putting out music. So it'd be great to get to talk about it a bit more in a with you and whoever else out there. But it's nice to see you again, Paul.
All right. So Hyperverse, that's the Liam. Solid.
Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. To be continued, Liam Finn.
All right, Paul.
Okay. All the best.
Good to see you.